Hello, I'm Dusty Weis from PodCamp Media, and we are excited to be casting live this afternoon from the floor as the official podcast of the Wisconsin Esports Summit here today, brought to you by Red Bull. Thank you to Red Bull for the sponsorship. PodCamp Media, a little bit about us. We are an award-winning podcast production company based here in Milwaukee, working with clients all across North America, and we are proud to be able to continue to support the Wisconsin esports scene and the work that the Milwaukee Esports Alliance does. This is our third year in a row here now. And guys, I just love this event. I love getting to do it. I love the vibe. I love how it all comes together. Joining me here today as my co-host is Matt Covarrubias. He is also one of the co-hosts of the Battery Low podcast for video game news, reviews, and rumors. Also one of our contract podcast editors at PodCamp. But Matt, this is actually the first time that I've pointed a microphone at your face. How does that make you feel?
Good. You know, it's I'm still kind of adjusting my eyes to the light. I'm so used to being in your
coming out of that dark production booth.
I'm used to being in the podcast mines, deep in the editing. But good to be here.
Tell me about your podcast real quick. Battery Low, what's it about?
The Battery Low podcast. It basically started when my friend and I, we would always just get together and talk about video games, and people would just kind of eavesdrop and be like, hey, I would listen to this.
You sound like you know what you're talking about.
You should talk about this. You should record this. And then we both moved away. We both moved to separate states, and gaming kind of kept us together. It kind of connected us. Just started that a couple years ago. We were wildly inconsistent, but we've been weekly for a month and a half now.
That's the way to do it.
It's a strong month.
Yeah, so it's been a good month for us. But yeah, we just hang out. We do it mostly for our friends, but sometimes random people find it, and it's like, okay, welcome.
Battery Low podcast for all your video game news, reviews, and all that stuff. And I do know that you have some hot takes queued up for us this afternoon. We're going to get into those in a little bit. Much to Brandon's chagrin here. But I would be remiss if I did not introduce the man himself, the reason that we all here right now. Brandon Tschacher, you are the president of the Milwaukee Esports Alliance. This is your blood, sweat, and tears here that we're all working in. So thank you for making time to stop by the booth and chat with us here today.
Hey, appreciate it. It's awesome to have you guys here.
How are you feeling, man? Is the adrenaline still surging?
Yeah, we're in full adrenaline mode. Once the music starts hitting, that's usually when I start to get excited. And yeah, looking out over the floor today, there's a lot to be excited about. So yeah, stoked.
This is the fourth annual, I believe. Tell us a little bit about the history. How did we get started? How did we get here?
Yeah, it is the fourth annual. It got started kind of as a parlay off of what we were doing during COVID, which was a lot of what we called community Zooms, right? We had digital ways to intersect, as all of us had to do during that time. And really there was just a call from the community saying, hey, we still like in person. We still like being able to have a handshake and a hello face-to-face. And so, as with everything we do, when the community asks for it, we try to figure out a way to make it happen. And so this was born out of that idea. First year was actually just across from the Pfizer at the Mecca, which was great. We helped fill that out. And then we took the big leap 3 years ago to get this arena. And so now we've been trying to fill that out, and it's been going really well. So it's the labor of love, and we're really grateful. And this year we've got just an incredible vendor lineup, panel lineup. This is going to be fun.
What are you most excited about right now as you look around the room here?
I am excited for the experts that we've got that are going to talk about some really important parts of the gaming ecosystem. I'm excited that we have got a large contingent of national vendors with us this year, and that's really encouraging because we're trying to put Milwaukee on the national and international map as a gaming destination. So I'm excited to see them. I'm excited for their partnership, and I'm just really optimistic that our community will continue to interface and kind of learn from them, as well as, of course, our incredible local vendors as well. We're stoked. It's going to be an awesome time.
And even as we're sitting here, you're of course basically floor directing and making the show happen here.
You bet. That's what it takes.
What would you say is the future of the esports scene here in Wisconsin and here in Milwaukee? We've seen tremendous growth just over the last couple of years, but as we move from sort of that like primordial phase to what comes next, and as the business models mature, where do you see Milwaukee's place being in that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that we are really buying and investing in regionality. There's a model out there that kind of goes from amateur to regional to national to international, and I think we are trying to find our place in that regional space to try to be able to create competitions, create education, create communities that are working together here in Wisconsin. That has really been our goal from the beginning, but I think it's going to continue to be even more critical, just based on national trends that we're seeing. Not always reaching in scale is not always the answer. And so I think for us, we're just continue to try to double down and make sure that what we're doing here is meaningful and that the people that we're partnered with here are getting good value and that are growing along with our community. So that's our bet.
I'm just curious, looking around here, everybody's still piling in. We're setting up, and we've got a ton of vendors here. What do you want guests to take away when they walk into this space? What do you want them to feel? And then when they leave, what do you want them thinking? What do you want them to tell their friends when they walk out of this event today?
I hope, honestly, that they can walk in and feel awe. I hope that they can walk in and see relevant music. I hope they can see graphics that are cutting edge. I hope that they can talk to people that are excited and have a lot of charisma for this space. One of the coolest things about gaming is that it just looks and feels good and cool. And so I hope that people come in and they just say, that was really, really fun. I hope that they find meaningful connections with our vendors for the potential of business. That's why these events happen. But ultimately, I hope that they can have a sense of inspiration and a feeling that this is really cool and that something really cool is happening in Milwaukee. So mainly it's an emotional tie. And then again, for all of our incredible vendors, I hope that they find partners and find people that they can leverage and use in their businesses or their schools. So that's the goal.
You know, you say that, and I think Matt was just telling you as we were getting set up here that part of the reason that he works at PodCamp Media now is that 2 years ago he came to the Wisconsin Esports Summit, came over, introduced himself, and said, I've always wanted to learn how to make podcasts. And I said, I have too much work to do right now. Would you please come help me? Mm-hmm. But do you hear, tell me some more success stories like that, where people have been connected with other people and it's forged a business relationship or a partnership that endures to this day.
Yeah, many. I mean, there's a lot of business relationships that come out of it, but on the, honestly, employment side has been wild. I know last year one of our main panelists, Jazz Sanghani, who was up there speaking to her content creation, she works now for Midwest Games, which is an incredible story. We had Joystick Life, Christian startup here in Milwaukee that does mobile app helping people with anxiety. They've worked into the gaming space. They found an employee last year. So it's been wild, actually, the connections that have come from it. And I love hearing those stories because, again, other than the joy, which is exciting, it's great to hear that meaningful connections and employment is happening, because that's a big part of the esports story, is that it's not just games, it's moving people into careers, it's moving them into, vocations that they can sustain over time. So there's some good stories that way.
Well, I got to ask, what do you plan tonight to de-stress? You've done the event. You've got it's in the rearview mirror. Mm-hmm. What are you doing to unwind? What are you booting up?
I will be staying analog, and I will be hugging my 5-year-old and 2-year-old, 1-year-old, and I'll be spending time with family. That is the way that I get to decompress, if there is decompression time, and so it's meaningful. But if I were to be playing a game, it would be Marvel Ultimate Alliance for 360 with my son, who's 5 and can play with me, which is amazing. So awesome. That's what we're doing right now.
So, as one dad to another, and I haven't gotten around yet to introducing my kids to the world of video gaming yet, other than when they sneak in and peek over my shoulder and watch me, destroying my buddies in Mech Warrior Deathmatch or something like that.
Nice.
What's a good starter game for getting young kids into the world of gaming? Because I look at it as a dad, and I worry that if I'm like, guys, video games are the best, you got to check this out, you're going to love that. Because kids are supposed to reject what their parents love.
Ooh, yeah, true.
How have you navigated that, being a little bit further into that journey than I am?
Slowly. I've done it slowly, and I would say Nintendo makes a lot of very family-friendly products, that you can drop and play easily. Honestly, some of the older retro consoles are better for being able to play side by side. So I tend to gravitate towards some of the older generation models of consoles because it allows me to sit next to my son, play something that's family-friendly, and just kind of learn along the way. So I would say that's how I've approached it. Don't know that it's been a perfect science, but because of course he wants to play then just all the time. I don't think you'll find that maybe same analogy that we're used to, I was a big baseball player, you should play baseball. No, Dad, I'm rejecting it. If you say you play video games, I think your kid will just play video games. I'm not sure there's a rejection quotient there, like maybe other things. So
I think you're misunderstanding how pig-headed and stubborn my kids can
be. That could be. That could be.
Oh, well, that's really cool, man. Look, I know you've got an event to run here. I know that you've got a full docket today. As we get set to open the doors here, what's your one big hope for today, March 3rd, 2025, and the 4th annual now? And if I could pause for a second, actually, I used to do public relations down the street here at Milwaukee City Hall. And one of my biggest pet peeves is when one of our elected officials would come up to me and say, hey, I've got an event. We're calling it the first annual blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, guys, you don't have a first annual. You don't have a second annual. You shouldn't even have a third annual because you're setting yourself up for conspicuous failure. You don't call it an annual event until you've done 3 of them and you're on the 4th.
Yeah.
So this is the 4th annual.
Wise
you've
counsel.
done it.
It's a wise counsel.
You've done it. What is your big hope for the day here as you get set to open the doors in a few minutes?
I hope that everyone, again, has fun, but that we also continue to set the stage, whether it's been our tournaments or our opportunity to partner on a venue. Like, we're in the infancy and growth phase as a community, as a region, as a state. And so I think that my goal is that we continue to set the stage for people who are here from California, Arizona, and all over to say, no, this is legit. This is a legit community that gets it and that is in growth mode as well. And so that's what I hope the overall vibe feels like afterwards.
Well, cool, man. We should let you run. I know you got a lot to do here. If you see Mykiah from Spectrum Industries, send him over because he's going to be our next guest here.
Cool.
But Brandon Tschacher, you're running this event. Again, great event. We're super excited to be a part of it once again. So thanks for inviting us and thanks for joining us here on the Event Podcast.
Appreciate you guys both. Yeah. Let's have a great event.
Let's go. All right. In the meantime, Matt, you made me aware recently of a little piece of video gaming news that I had not yet heard of that kind of blew my mind a little bit. But the fact that there is an ongoing strike in the world of voice acting. And of course, as video game players, we know that the people that give voice to our favorite characters are a big part of the reason that we get to enjoy the immersive virtual environments that we do. But what the heck is going on out there right now? Yeah,
it's kind of a crazy story, and it's something that I think has flown under the radar for a lot of people because I only found out about it when I booted up Destiny 2, the popular Bungie-developed live service first-person shooter, and went to play their newest DLC, their newest episode, they call it, and there was this pop-up message that essentially said, like, there's going to be these 2 major characters that are just going to have their voice lines missing. And we apologize, but you're just going to have to read the subtitles. And I was just like, what? And they put out a little blog post where they just mentioned, like, yeah, there's the strike. Yeah, we didn't want to use AI. And so, sorry, we're going to try and get it sorted out, but you're just going to have to use subtitles.
So, I mean, credit where it's due because they were able to resist that impulse to, like, slap in a really poorly put together slapdash AI voice.
Right.
But what are they going to do about this?
Yeah, I don't know. It's just the season's been going on, and these are major characters. This is the final sort of build up to their next expansion, their next era for the game. And so it's a pretty pivotal point in the story. And if I were to compare it to something, it would be like if you're watching The Mandalorian and Luke Skywalker shows up and he's completely mute and you just have to read his subtitles, but everybody else talks to him like they can hear him. And so it was just, it's this ongoing strike. A lot of the things on this that the actors are striking for is AI related.
Okay, flesh that out a little bit now, because I know that particularly in creative fields right now, there's a lot of hesitation about AI. People are worried that they're going to lose their jobs to AI. Right. In fact, that's something that we've covered on the Lead Balloon podcast, that certain jobs in the world of writing and content production have been outsourced to AI. So what is it that they're striking for? What is it that they object to, and what do they hope to achieve?
Well, I think one of the main things is protection that your voice can't be cloned. They want to have it to where it's like, I'm going to be in the booth, I'm going to say what I'm going to say, and you can't take what I've said and make a model out of that. So they want more protections for the use of their voice and to make sure that they don't inevitably get replaced by a version of themselves that's not themselves.
Are the game studios fighting them on that? Like, is there anybody out there arguing that, hey, you signed a contract with us and spent 100 hours in a recording booth, and so we can do whatever we want with that voice model, including creating an AI clone of your voice, and you just have to take that? Is there anybody actually arguing for that?
I think if, on a surface level, some people higher ups see we can be making things a lot cheaper than we're making them now. and we can be making things quicker. Because, for example, the finals was this, I think it's still around, but it was this first-person like extraction shooter, like go in, get the thing, come out, be the first team to do that. They didn't have any voice actors for a lot of their roles. They just used AI, like text-to-speech. And they said they were able to do that, or they did that because it took the development time, like cut it by like 6 months. So they're seeing the future that could be, we could do things faster and cheaper, and the actors are like, I still want to be able to do my thing and do my job and, put my stamp on it and finish the job of these characters that I've been voicing for, in Destiny's case, like 10 years.
Oh, yeah. I mean, Destiny has been around forever, and it's brought in some really big-name voice talent.
Yeah.
One of my favorite actors, Nathan Fillion, was on it for many, many years.
Yep.
But all that is to say, so this happened to you while you were booting up the game and getting ready to play. You were obviously shocked. You said so yourself. What has been the reaction from fans of the game? Are they upset? Are they confused? Are they ready to light torches and carry pitchforks and join them on the strike line? What's happening?
Well, the Destiny community is always ready with the pitchforks regarding anything.
That's fair.
But, I mean, when you invest 11 years into a game, that kind of happens. But, I think the Destiny community has largely been understanding of it. The thing that I've seen complaints about, and the thing that I've been a little, perturbed by, or the experience has been a little lessened, is kind of having to stop playing just to like find a rock and crouch and just read what they're saying, because it's such key pivotal dialogue that I want to experience, and that also is going to eventually get removed. So I don't know if this is ever going to get fixed. It's just because these seasonal stories come in for a year and then they go out and then they go to the next thing. So it's been disruptive, but I think a lot of people, from what I've seen online, are appreciative that they didn't use AI, are appreciative that they're like, we respect, the strike. We respect that our actors want to voice these characters, want to bring what they've brought to these characters for years. And so we're just going to do the hard thing and put in subtitles. But so people are understanding, but are frustrated and are wondering if there's a timeline. And with strikes, it's always hard to know where the timeline is at, right?
It seems like the kind of thing that, particularly an always-on game like Destiny 2, they should probably fix this sooner than later.
Yeah.
I feel like the longer it goes on, the more people are going to turn against the game studios. I don't know, has there been any blowback for these striking voice actors, or is it mainly the studios that are taking the heat?
I mean, it's really easy for gamers to get riled up at executives. Like upper management.
We have a brand.
Upper management is the ultimate final boss, I would say, in a lot of gamers' minds, because a lot of people will come out of these companies and will say, like, we had this idea for the game, upper management shot it down, upper management scaled it back, upper management slashed the budget. So I think a lot of people are targeting the higher-ups at the games companies, being like, figure this out, and we want to have our games to where we can hear them again. And most of the ire has been towards the higher-ups from what I've seen.
Ultimately, where do you see it going? I mean, are the voice actors going to get what they want? Are they going to have to concede that, it would make sense that perhaps in the future, particularly as there are these adaptive games that utilize AI to interact more directly with the players, that maybe there would be a situation where a game developer would want to put a voice actor in a booth for hundreds of hours and get them saying all manner of things, but then need to use AI on the back end to make it a more interactive product. Is there sort of a middle ground that they're gravitating toward right here, or is it really just kind of, or are they digging in their heels and absolutely saying, no, not AI, you won't replace voice actors with this?
It's hard to fully say. You definitely see the two strongest opinions on either side the most, but it's hard to say what's happening in the rooms where these negotiations are happening. But I see it going to where contracts just become immensely more complicated than they are now. With
somehow the lawyers always win, right?
Yes, right. I think we see more intense contracts with more protections for voices, more explicit permissions for this is what my voice can and cannot be used for, and maybe game companies being a little bit more stingy with like, well, if you have one of these more complicated contracts, we're going to go with somebody else. But I think there's a little bit of a line being divided in the sand of the companies that are like, we're all in on this new technology. It's going to make things faster. It's going to make things cheaper. And the people going, no, these are people that are the soul of these characters that bring a lot to the table themselves, and we don't want to cut them out of this process. We believe they bring value. Like you see Nathan Fillion joining Destiny 2, and that I think means a lot more, in my opinion, to people than we have the rights to Nathan Fillion's voice. You know what I mean? So yeah. I think we probably just see more complicated contracts with a lot of protections. But there's gonna be concessions either way. But it's really interesting to see how this one has dragged on so much longer than the like Hollywood SAG-AFTRA strikes with the writers and the producers and the directors. Their strikes were resolved relatively quickly, and this games one has been going on since last year. It's been going on for I think 6 months.
Yeah. Well, I think a big part of that too is that I don't want to be crass about it. Certainly, I know that in really intense gaming communities, there's a lot of appreciation for the people who make these games. But I think in broader society, the movie industry has been around for decades. There have been movies made about making movies. Right. So many movies about making movies exist out there. And so I think that there's maybe certainly not an appropriate level of appreciation, but at least a baseline level of appreciation for what goes into making a movie, because we've seen that. And so much of what happens in making video games plays out totally behind the scenes.
Right.
And is just totally foreign to people.
Right.
We say all the time in making podcasts that if you're doing a good job, it makes the job look easy.
Right.
And when you play a really great, really immersive video game, it feels easy. It feels like, well, this world has just always been here.
Right.
And you don't necessarily have respect for the literal thousands of people that put in the work to bring it into the real world.
Iterating and iterating and iterating.
And so I think part of that might just be that there is not that societal level of appreciation for what goes into making video games, and maybe it's time that we had more movies about making video games.
Yeah.
That really shined a spotlight on the heroes that are out there doing this.
Yeah.
Heroes is maybe a stretch. I'm going to walk that back. May
Artists.
I have permission to...
Sure,
Artists.
the creatives.
Artists, certainly.
Right.
Artists is a hill that I would die on.
Sure.
As far as that goes. But I did want to get... Because I know that you've also been keeping track of some broader topics of artificial intelligence in video gaming.
Yeah.
So fill me in on that. Where are the other places that AI is starting to infiltrate the world of video game creation?
Well, AI is kind of... It depending on who you're talking to, it means a different thing. But in the broadest sense, AI is trying to be used for voice acting, but they're also using it for game preservation is one of the pitches. So Microsoft just recently unveiled Muse, which is this weird attempt at using AI to generate like a newer version of a video game. So they took an extinct live, like now dead shooter game from years ago. They ran it through AI. So basically they didn't have to recreate the game. They don't have to scrape out the old engine, find all the bugs. They've generated the gameplay, and it's procedural, and the maps and everything is generated from the data they fed in from this old game. The pitch being, we can feed old games into this, and it will pop out something that feels and looks like it, but is newer and could be more polished looking. But as of course, what it looks like right now is terrible. And you can see everything's jittering, everything's changing because it's constantly, rethinking what it should put here and what the animation should go here. So the pitch is a little flimsy, in my opinion, but...
and this gets me back to like what so much of... I think there's a lot of hype out there right now about the artificial intelligence and the capabilities that it has. Certainly we've seen that it can do some pretty cool things. But I feel like so often now, we're 2 years into the AI hype machine, and so often now they're coming out with these things and saying, "Hey, look at this problem that we've solved
Right.
with artificial intelligence." And everybody else looks back at them and says, "That wasn't a problem.
Right.
That needed a solution."
Right.
I feel like you have a solution, and now you're trying to create problems for it to solve. This
Definitely.
seems like that to me.
No, definitely, because game remasters and remakes have been a thing. Even in this young medium, we've seen games from like 10, 15, 20 years ago get remakes. Specifically like Halo, they ran a version of the remake on top of the old version of the game, and you can hit a button and you'll switch back and forth between the classic and the remastered game. So this stuff can be done. Apparently the pitch was like to remove some of the difficulty in working with these really old game engines. But I think also
I'm sorry, but isn't that part of the art?
Exactly.
Isn't that part of the appeal of the
Exactly.
thing?
I think part of what makes those old games so nostalgic is the jank to them. Is the feel of them, of going like, oh yeah, I can't clamber up this thing. I don't sprint in the original Halo 1. Going back and feeling that is, I think, the point of games preservation, in my opinion, would be to most accurately preserve the experience that people had on launch.
Not create a bad robots dream of electric sheep simulacrum, like acid trip of, well, this is sort of what the imagery
shifting,
looks like.
Yeah.
I just, it's not what I'm looking for. I don't think that's what anybody's looking for.
No, that's the thing about a lot of this is it seems like it's like, this is the future. And it's like, I think one thing that has potential with AI in gaming is AI NPCs. But AI NPCs would be like, you would walk up to a character in a video game and they would be able to have a conversation with you and generate responses based on what you're saying.
See, now that has appeal to me.
Right.
That's something that, like, I've been playing games for the better part of 35 years now, and I hear something like that, and I'm like, you mean I don't have to select A, B, or C? I can have a conversation with an NPC?
Right.
Like, there's something attractive about that.
There is. I think it only can work in certain games, I feel like. I don't feel like it would belong in everything, but because you still want to appreciate video game writing. You don't want to be like, wow, that game had a great AI model, because like certain story moments would be exclusive to different games, right? Based on your experience and what you said to them. But it's a wide variety of applications they're exploring, and I feel like only a narrow amount that people are actually interested in, but we'll see.
Yeah, well, it's developing like so much in the industry is right now, and certainly it is going to be an adventure. It is every day. But good stuff to talk about there, and we want to get back to some more topics like that a little bit further down the line here. We are now joined by John Cayer. Cayer, did I say that right?
You did. Good morning.
Great. Go ahead and scoot up on your microphone there, John, just a little bit, but we're really excited to have you join us here. You are the president of Mueller Esports Medicine.
Yes. Thanks for having me on your show.
Thank you for coming. You've been in the business of sports medicine for 60 years now at Mueller, which, congratulations, that's an incredible milestone. I can only imagine that you have had the opportunity to help a whole bunch of really high-performing athletes perfect their craft. And as a fan of watching high-performance athletes do their thing, thank you for doing that. But how much of that knowledge and experience was just like something that you could directly apply to the world of esports medicine when that became a point of sale for you guys?
Well, we really studied esports medicine for a few years before we decided to get into it, because the injuries and the stress on the ligaments are so unique to these great athletes that we didn't want to just assume that everything from the other world of sports, more traditional sports, would fall in this space. So we really spent our time doing our homework. We talked to a lot of experts, and we developed products accordingly. But we do at Mueller Sports Medicine, we have certified athletic trainers on our staff. We have biomedical and mechanical engineers. We have all kinds of experts that help design these great products for these athletes.
Well, because my next question to you was it shocking to you when you realized just how hard esports could be on the body, because I'll preface this with a story. I was in Seoul, South Korea, visiting a friend of mine who is a commentator in the esports world there, and we went out for dinner with one of his friends, Nick Platt, better known as Tasteless. He is the world's leading commentator on StarCraft, and a well-renowned figure in the world of esports, and he met us out for dinner, and he had gauze wrapped all up and down his arms, and I'm like, oh, what happened? And he's like, oh, just my weekly acupuncture session. I have terrible, crippling carpal tunnel from the 20 years plus that he had at the time spent playing StarCraft for very often 14, 16 hours a day. Like, it took a toll on his body that I would not have expected. So what sorts of ailments do you see people coming in with?
We see all kinds of ailments, mainly around ligaments associated with the hand, all the way up to the neck. And you would say, to the neck, really? Yes, because everything's connected, and the stress on the body from all these very fast-paced repetitive motions is unique to this sports world. Yeah, we don't see it in any other sports. We did a 2-day summit with medical experts from many different fields to study this, and we put it all together into one big document that we reference all the time in our development of new products. So we're going to be coming out with one later this year that's pretty cool. You probably never heard of the malady before, but it's very popular amongst the most elite athletes in esports. So we're a private company. I won't say any more.
Oh,
but,
this is top secret, hush,
top
hush
secret
kind of
stuff.
All right.
But more is coming, and we are always looking for ways we can help these athletes. You know, I'm just wearing one of the very straightforward products that we have. This is a graduated compression arm sleeve that's very specifically designed to help improve blood flow during the course of you wearing it. And it's great for anyone who's playing multiple hours of gaming, practicing, whatever they're doing. It does help quite a bit.
Yeah, I was going to ask, you talk about these like extreme high level athletes competing at like these huge world stages and stuff. Are the products you're making tailored specifically for that audience, just competing at a high level, or is there anything that could apply to a long session of me playing with my friends playing Destiny for the night?
Sure, we make a whole wide variety of products. At Mueller Sports Medicine, we have about 3,000 different items. I'd say about 50 are very good for this world. Probably 10 of those are for the super elite, and the other 40 are for the more casual gamer. We have one really great technology we came out with a couple of years ago. It's called Revive, and it does exactly what the word connotates, which is it revives your system. Certainly gets blood flow moving, but more importantly, it helps your lymphatic system get activated. And when you're sitting for long periods of time, you need that. Otherwise, it takes a long time for you to get soreness and pain out. If you have this Revive, it's a graduated compression system that hooks up to a pump, and you put on legs or there's arm garments, and you just do 20 minutes, half hour. It feels really good. And what it does for many hours after that is it's activating your lymphatic system, which is getting any swelling out, any waste, any pain. It's helping your body do what your body does naturally, but speeds it all up.
That's fascinating.
Now, John, I'm a lot older than Matt. Certainly my days of long 8-hour sessions of playing Destiny 2 are well behind me. I can't go 20 minutes without getting interrupted by a toddler these days. But that much said, in my day-to-day life, I very often spend 4, 5, 6, 8 hours editing podcasts in a row, working on video. This has a lot of the same, perhaps, hidden health pitfalls that extended video game sessions have. Is there an application in there for someone like me as well? I mean, is there an application for these technologies beyond just esports?
Absolutely, absolutely. We do our technologies, what we like to say is we're built in sport, made for life. So we come from the sports world and we engineer to that world, but it's great for everyday people in their everyday life. So your particular example, you're putting a lot of stress on your shoulders, on your neck muscles. You're certainly straining your eyes, and you're not moving. When you're not moving, a lot of bad things happen to your body, right? And we make devices and modalities that help stimulate movement and simulate how you can get that waste out of your body faster. One of the great things about working with elite athletes in many sports is you oftentimes read stories that say you see an injury and then you see them come back so fast. How did they come back so fast? Like it would take an average person months and they come back in weeks. It's because they have these kind of modalities, these kind of machines, these kind of devices like this that they are constantly working with that helps their body heal faster.
I've got to say that shirt, those sleeves that you have on right there, I'm already intrigued. I'm going to have to swing by the booth a little bit later to maybe try those on because I think there's a lot of application there for me. But beyond just the products that you guys are able to offer your customers, are you able to consult with them to see them in action, to help correct maybe some of the bad habits? I don't want to say that the video gamers have bad habits that need to be addressed about their physical activity levels and all of that. But I do know that recently I have been dealing with some fairly crippling shoulder pain. And my wife, who is a physician, has been threatening to, and she finally came down and watched me work for a little while. And she immediately went, "Look at how you're sitting." And I went, "What? What's the matter with this?" And she's like, "You're slouched. You're putting all your pressure on your shoulder right there. Like, you don't have to be a doctor to know that you're going to kill yourself if you sit like that. So maybe try sitting up straight." Are there other, like, really simple tips that you're able to give people and coach people through to keep them from winding up crippled like me at the ripe old age of 40?
Absolutely. We have a great team at Mueller Sports Medicine. We have about 5 individuals in our customer service group that when you call in, they're going to give you tips on lots of different things, from what kind of products to use to some very straightforward things like you mentioned. One of the biggest ones we find is that posture is the key to everything. And we make a outstanding posture supporter that is really fantastic. It gives you a subtle reminder to just keep your shoulders back.
No way.
Absolutely.
What kind of reminder?
It just, when you slouch, it pulls.
Oh,
and
okay.
you feel it. It's not painful, but it's a reminder that says, hey, you need to correct. And what we found is people who wear that a few hours a day, they get into a habit. It actually is training their body to do it. And they don't have to wear it forever. They just get into the habit and helps their posture tremendously.
For advanced cases like me, do you have anything that maybe administers a mild electric shock? Because I have really bad habits that are deeply ingrained.
In our new product development process, we did look at some of those. We're like, that's just too cruel. That's too cruel. We're a family company. We don't do that. So
That's awesome. Well, being here at an event like this, it's a great opportunity to talk with players, talk with people competing at high levels and people competing at all levels. But what do you hear the most from people here, and what are you most excited to show people while you're here?
we hear a lot of, hey, I've got this ache or this pain. It's not going away. It's what we would call that chronic. It's staying with me, and it's hurting my ability to play. And the worst is when you can't do what you love, right? And we know everyone here loves their game or games. They love to compete. They love to practice. And so what we do is we offer products that can help them stay in the game. That's been one of the Mueller phrases for over 60 years, stay in the game. We trademarked it. And it's a great mantra for our development team. How do we help you stay in the game, whatever your game is? So one of the things that we've seen here is a lot of people come over and they go, well, I didn't know that particular thing would help me with that. Or I've never seen those things. Those Revive ones I told about. Most people in this world have never seen that modality, which is pretty common in a lot of other sports like football and basketball and things of that sort. In this world, they just haven't had much exposure to it. we went out to TwitchCon last fall, which was fantastic. It was a lot of fun, and our booth was just mobbed, and everyone said, there's never been a sports medicine company here. And we said, well, why not? You guys are outstanding athletes. We need to be helping you. And one of the things that we found in that session was that everyone was just amazed by the Revive. We had some custom chairs and an ottoman, and we just had about 4 or 5 Revives going all at the same time, everyone facing each other so they could talk to each other. It was very social. And most of the people that tried it, after 20 minutes, they said, I got new legs. And the only way to get your limb system to work is to stimulate it with movement, with massage, and this Revive essentially does that for you.
I have never been so aware of the sedentary nature of my job as I am right at this very instant having this conversation. Oh, I need to get up and move my body. That much said, as you look ahead to the future of esports medicine, you said something a moment ago that really struck me. It's that almost that these esports athletes, they seemed to find it refreshing that you treated them and approach them as professionals, as athletes. I think that they still face a lot of prejudice that's tied to some perhaps misconceptions about video games and what a gamer is and all of that. But as the industry continues to grow and mature, as there is more professionalism that is brought out and surfaced in it, what do you see as the future of the esports industry, and what do you see as the future of esports medicine?
I see this industry growing at an even more rapid pace going forward. I see the legitimacy of the teams, of the leagues, of the university system, where it's not part of a student group, it's part of athletics, with athletic trainers assigned to them. These are medical professionals with 6 years of schooling, given all the maladies that esport athletes have. I see that increasing rapidly in the next few years. I see the awareness in the general marketplace really growing, and I see the need for all of these athletes to take better care of themselves. Because I think the statistic is that on average, the elite esport athlete is retired by the age of 24. That's way too young. Way too young.
That's not even retirement at that point.
No, they started at 16, but hey, that is way too young, and they're going to have hand and various ligament issues the rest of their life because they don't have the awareness, they don't have the treatment that many other traditional sports do in the sports medicine. We take great pride in that, and we want to continue to invest for the future. We believe there's a great future for this sport, and we want to be right there, right in the middle of it.
Well, certainly a worthy cause, and again, having as someone who played video games from a very young age and now finds myself somehow inexplicably knocking on the door of 40, it's good to know that there are tools and tactics that are out there available to help us preserve our bodies and game longer. Stay in the game, like you said. Thank you for taking the time to join us, man. It's been really cool, really enlightening to get to hear what you guys are doing at Mueller. John Cayer, he's the president at Mueller Esports Medicine. Thank you for joining us here on the Official Event Podcast.
Great, thank you. And when you guys get a little tired later, come on over for a Revive treatment, and you'll be good to go for the next 8 hours.
Save me a spot in the Revive chair, man. I'm going to need it already.
Yeah, just going to have to take you up on that.
Feeling it, right?
Yes.
So we did swing over to the Mueller Esports Medicine booth real quick, and we're trying these incredible boots. This is the Revive system that John had mentioned before. What is that thing doing to your body right now? Describe it for me.
It's just making my legs feel like they went to heaven. I don't know how to describe it other than I want my whole body to feel like this.
We have not been compensated for this review. We should specify, but yeah, we're trying these booties out. That's everything that was promised and more, gotta say.
Matt, a good conversation there with John from Mueller Esports Medicine, but we're joined now by someone else that's got a great story to tell about their time in the esports and gaming world. Jake Juve is the events director at Gaming Generations, and Gaming Gen is a multifaceted organization with deep ties to the Wisconsin video game scene. Launched in 2006 as a retail and repair store in La Crosse, the company has broadened out to include merchandising, event logistics, and esports support. So, Jake, thank you so much for joining us.
Happy to be here. Thank you.
So, kind of tell us how you got to where you are now. I mean, starting as a retail and repair store in La Crosse to now working with companies like Nintendo and Capcom and stuff. How do you get from A to B there?
I'd say a lot of scaling over the course of 20 years, most definitely. It starts small, running some local activations. After a while, we felt confident enough to rent an expo center out. We tried our hand at a larger event. After a couple of years, we saw the likes of Justin Wong, even Ninja showed up at our... Yeah, he actually met his wife at our event.
Really?
True story.
Did you get an invite to the wedding?
I can't say I did. Back then, I was a little lower on the totem pole here at Gaming Gen too. So, no kidding. 2010, It was one of Wisconsin's worst blizzards ever, actually, and we still went on with the event. There was a lot of hemming and hawing about how we proceed forward, but it ended up happening, and sure as heck, I guess somebody met the love of their life. Well, that said, after the success of our Focus Fire event, which was local at La Crosse, we had about 1,000 people show up to that thing, and again, they flew in from everywhere. We decided to try our hand at Evo, just simply running a booth. We brought some side setups. We ended up running some casuals after hours, and over time, enough people noticed us, that we could help with smaller activations, and before you know it, we had our foot in the door as the backbone of the FGC, and it just scales up from there. I could tell you the whole story, but I'm sure you have more questions for me.
Sure. I mean, that's amazing. I think one of the things I'm always interested in with these sort of events is how you brand them, how you market them, because is the comparison to traditional sports helpful or hurtful when you're trying to market an esports event?
That's really interesting, actually. I'd say that's why we often resort to third parties to help solve those issues.
Okay.
But I could say, in regards to marketing these events, it helps to have a network of TOs and other organizers that have a lot of experience in that, because it totally depends on your scene. You have a Smash tournament, say Genesis or whatever, that's going to give you a completely different group of people than you would, say the World Championships over at Evo. And so understanding your client is really important. Understanding the user base they're in is really important. And again, most importantly, I'd say, is working with a group of people who know how to answer those questions better than we do ourselves sometimes.
So you said the title is events director, but you've been with the organization for a good long time and started a little bit further down the totem pole by your own admission there.
Yeah.
How did you get started? What's your background?
Sure. So about a year after our flagship store opened in La Crosse, Wisconsin, we opened a store in Stevens Point, Wisconsin. That's where I'm originally from. Within a year or so, I had been working there part-time. After a little while, our store manager graduated college. I became full-time store manager there. As the years went on, we had 5 stores across the state, and they needed a retail operations manager there. After that, the events started to burgeon, and then they needed some more help in that sphere. So I guess esports actually created the American dream for one of us.
Climb the corporate ladder, Jake.
Yeah,
That's
no
awesome
kidding.
to hear, man.
Yep.
So, starting with those sort of really local roots, you started also, I noticed on your website, with Halo 2 tournaments.
Oh, yeah.
How important is that local connection and community to creating something that has evolved to where it is now?
It's everything. It's at least 1/3 of the FGC, because the C stands for community. It's everything. Even today, like the people that are involved on the largest scale tournaments, say Evo, Rick Thier is the or Thayer. Apologies, Rick. He's the director of that event, and he's been grassroots. He helped start Combo Breaker. I think 2015 was its inaugural year. Basically, even on the largest scale, there's the people who climbed that ladder and always started at the bottom. It's very rare that you have some bigwig come in who's like, oh yeah, I got a big time degree and I don't know anything about anyone that has ever done this, but I'm going to tell you how it goes. It's not necessarily like that.
Living the American dream as you have, when you talk to someone who's coming up as an esports athlete, as an avid video gamer, someone who's passionate about it and has stated, hey, I want to do this professionally someday, what is your advice to them? Because a lot of people love video games. Most people don't find a way to make a living doing it.
Absolutely.
What do they need to do to take their passion and turn it into a career?
You have to take it seriously. And what that means, a professional football player probably spends, 10% of his time actually playing the game, and everything else is training, preparation, being physically conditioned even. It's pretty interesting seeing how some of these teams manage their players. It's aggressive exercise regimens, strict scheduling, and practice. You have to take it seriously. Just because you're good at video games doesn't mean you're the best in the world. It takes a lot more.
So I wanted to get to the events themselves that you guys put on. Esports events are so different from an audience perspective to traditional sports events. How do you set it up to where it's something that everyone in the room can equally enjoy and watch, and that the athletes are, center stage and able to do their thing without distractions?
Yeah. Well, there's a good blend. Obviously, you have the live streams, which, reach the broader audience. But when you're actually at the event, I think the best part about, especially the fighting game in FGC in general, it differs from League of Legends or something like that because you get bits. You have a round, you have a match, and it's over before you know it. And so there's a lot of hype. All of a sudden, something can change in an instant. You have to run a match back. Round 3, here we go. It's just it's an interesting setup to have it in these short bits. Which, let's face it, nowadays in 2025, that's what people need, and so it kind of fits the bill.
Interesting. I think also what's interesting about it is the sort of emergent stories that can come from events like this because of their sort of new and unique nature. What are some of your favorite stories? I guess besides from having Ninja meet his wife at one of your events. That's a good start. I don't know if you could top that, but what are some of your favorite stories from some of the events you put on?
Sure. I could say this one isn't so much for the people that are actually attending the events, but a scenario that we hit. We were working with a client who basically entered the blockchain sphere, where they had this website. You'd play games and then you can earn credits and that kind of thing. So it's loosely tied to FGC here. We put on an event. What was it? Denver. 3/4 of their booth showed up. And there was still a quarter of the booth that got stuck in customs.
Oh no!
So the then director of events, our chief computer programmer, and the owner of the company partnered with our client, and they all went. No kidding, they all went over to what's the IKEA, the Swedish place, and we designed, bought, and built a custom booth for them within 5 or 6 hours.
No way.
Wow. I'd say, considering we went there expecting the stuff to show up and turnkey, monkey see, monkey do, set it up, and it turned into that, to walk away somewhat unscathed was a heck of a story, no doubt about it.
Yeah, that's the kind of stuff that people walking in won't appreciate, but just to be able to see that it's there, that it's set up, but you had to go through this wild story to get it set up. That's the behind-the-scenes stuff we love.
Amen. That's how the hot dogs are made, folks.
Ain't that the truth? And I've got to preface this by saying I say it with love. Lacrosse and Stevens Point are two of my favorite towns.
Is that so?
They're happening places, but they are not what people would traditionally think of when they think of entertainment powerhouses, right? No disrespect made.
No, I love it.
But you guys at Gaming Gen are putting these towns at the front of the conversation. You've become esports leaders. And so as you look at the esports field, do you still see it as we're in this sort of Wild West period where you don't have to be from LA or New York to make a huge splash in the world?
There's certainly a transition. I see some commercialization of the industry, which is a double-edged sword. You know, there's a lot of purists that have been around for decades who like it the way it is. And then there's a lot of new investment, though, a lot of new jobs being created, and a lot of things being pushed forward. I'm proud to say that we're from small-town Wisconsin because it holds true to the community part of fighting game community. That over the years, you know, we weren't willing to be bought out or anything like that because we are purists. Like, we truly believe that it matters for the people playing more than it matters for the people putting the show on. And that's going to maintain itself, I believe, even with the new investments that you're seeing as things become more commercial.
I love to see it. I love to see an organization like yours stand here and say, hey, look, we've been doing this for 20 years. You might be a lot of money, but you're new money. Come through us. Let us show you how it's done, and together we'll make this community stronger.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
I was just curious, having that trust there from the players, knowing that, you know, you guys know your stuff, you guys aren't, you know, bought. How does that, what do you see as the future for esports and gaming in like Wisconsin and the broader Midwest with that like core base of like trust there? How do you keep that alive, scaling that?
Well, I think a lot of it has to do with all of the booths here at this event today. Without the passion and all the hard work, I guess. Like, it's honestly so much easier to put on something that you've done over and over again, rinse and repeat. It's something wholly special for you to be able to create something new in a space that maybe it didn't exist before. You know, Wisconsin has a pretty good history of events that have maybe came and gone, others that are still around.
Maybe a little something called Gen Con that was a big part of the scene in Milwaukee here for a while.
That's right. And of course, it ain't too far away that we're going to get the Midwest Gaming Classic, which is
just a few weeks from now. Looking forward to that one.
Yeah, that's great. Will you be there?
Oh, I wouldn't miss it.
Oh, that's excellent. So, you know, we have the established mechanisms, but then there's so many people trying to make a dent in the scene, and that's what we're here for. You know, we're not just going to talk to Pokemon or Sony. I'm here because none of them are. It's all these passionate people that are looking for something new. That something new is going to continue to grow, just as I've seen it grow in my 15 years at Gaming Generations. I see no sense in it stopping. So,
well, Jake, is there anything that you want to add before we wind down here?
I just really want to thank you for the time. I didn't know you guys put so much thought and research into our company, and I'm I guess, really happy and really proud when you put it into those words. So thanks for giving me an opportunity to, speak on behalf of Gaming Gen.
I think you guys have a lot to be proud of. I mean, when I look at it and I look at, people talk about the burgeoning esports scene, the growing esports scene, like it's still something that's just coming out of its infancy. And then I see an establishment like yours that has been doing it for 20 years. There are mom and pop businesses that have come and gone and come and gone and come and gone in that time. You guys are crushing it. You're OG, and it's just really cool to see the success that you've had, and so we just wish you continued success. And thank you as well for making the time to chat with us and making the time to be here today at the Wisconsin Esports Summit. But Jake Juve, he is the events director at Gaming Generations. Thanks for making the time, man. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
This is the official event podcast of the Wisconsin Esports Summit, brought to you by Red Bull, and I'm Dusty Weis, and this is Matt Covarrubias, and we are super stoked to be sitting here now with Mykiah Bonhom, the esports specialist from Spectrum Industries, who actually just got off the main stage here at the summit, sharing a little bit about your background and a little bit about your story. But we'd love to have you reiterate for us real quick here, Mykiah. What is your story? How did you wind up as the esports specialist at Spectrum?
Yeah, so my journey into esports really started in high school. I wanted to try and be a psychologist, and then I was just like, well, I don't really want to go to med school. So then I was like, okay, well, maybe I'll go into like entertainment or business or anything. And then I realized that a lot of it is very long hours for very, very low pay. So I was like, okay, let's pivot. And I finally decided that, I call it, what is the degree that every college kid gets when they have no idea what they want to do? They just get a general business administration degree. So I was researching, and I had stumbled upon Shenandoah University, and I had seen that they had a new esports program. And so I went to Shenandoah, and honestly, I've never looked back. My experience in college was truly once in a lifetime. Like, I definitely wasn't like the partier of going out and like jumping into pools or doing anything like that. But, I was proud to say that like I've gone to Super Bowl 56, the one with the Rams and the Bengals. I've been to the golf men's US Open, and I've been to South Korea. I've been to London, and that was all within 4 years. And looking in hindsight, I don't know how I balanced all of that.
Yeah, it sounds exhausting, dude.
Yeah, it was definitely exhausting, but it was experiences that I will look back on for the rest of my life, and it helped build me to where I am today.
Spectrum, of course, is a Wisconsin institution, a leading manufacturer of office and educational furniture for classroom desks, collaboration, distance learning, all that sort of stuff, based in Chippewa Falls. But they've also embraced the rise of esports and gaming and are now offering this suite of furniture, stuff to keep gamers comfortable and keep them in the game and competitive. What prompted that pivot on the part of Spectrum? What did your boss tell you as far as what the company saw in the esports realm that made them want to get into that space?
Yeah, absolutely. So this all started in, I think, before 2016, but 2016 was when we officially launched our first esports product, which, I'll say in hindsight, like they showed me some of the prototypes. I was like, yeah, we've definitely come a long way. So how it all started was they started seeing a lot of these esports programs pop up around the country. And, one of our partners, he was communicating that, like, hey, this is a new emerging field. Like, there are people building out esports clubs and programs at different schools, like, and they're going to need chairs to sit in and tables to play on. Like, this is an industry this is a sector that you guys are missing out on. So my boss, Scott, like he did a lot of research, and he actually went to a lot of different events and had a lot of conversations, and that eventually ended up with us launching our first esports product in 2016. And it's grown so much to where now we have tons of different variety of furniture. We actually have 3 different esports desks now, soon to becoming 4. We have tons of furniture in AV broadcast production. We have console gaming hubs, and it's been growing very, very rapidly. I mean, I could even look at my position. They felt that this sector was so important that they hired an entire dedicated position for it. So Spectrum is really putting their money where their mouth is when they say that they really want to develop their foothold in this furniture esports business.
Now, you mentioned your position there, and it says esports specialist. Is that right?
Yes.
What does that entail, and what does your day-to-day look like as an esports specialist?
Yeah, so I definitely think my title supersedes me. I am definitely no specialist by any means. However, my job is pretty much to go and to use my experience of being in an esports program for 4 years of my life, and going and telling people about why it's important, how it benefits students. And, I feel like I'm in a very unique position where I can say that I have actually lived and breathed esports educational program. There are not a lot of people who can say that. And so Spectrum valued my unique perspective to be able to talk about what are the benefits and how it changed my life. So that is like pretty much, I would say, the esports specialist part. As far as my day-to-day, I split my job into 2 halves. So there's the at-home remote work that I do, and then there's the travel. So my official position falls under business dev, So my job is pretty much to help grow our esports ventures, or our esports efforts, and that can entail a ton of different things, like researching what are the different products that we should be going into. Like our new AV production desk, from day one, I was like, we need an AV production desk. Like, this is something that we need. This is something that is going to be coming up. Going and looking at different data points of like, okay, where is esports growing across the country? What things are people implementing into their programs? And I also just do a lot of educating some of our internal staff as well about what esports is, because we do have territory managers, but they'll say it before I do. Like, they're not really that educational, or not really that educated on what esports is and how exactly it benefits students. These are a lot of Midwestern guys. They've probably never even played anything more than the Nintendo 64, my boss included. So it's just explaining to them, like, what are the new games and how can we implement our products. And there's a lot of like small different things. My day-to-day can definitely vary depending on the time, but that's more of my remote work. And then when I travel, I go and I pretty much do similar things, but that's more when I think my salesman in me comes out, where I'm telling people about what is esports, how is it beneficial, what is our different furniture, how can it benefit students, and everything like that. So I travel to conferences all over the world, or not all over the country, not over the world. Yet at least. Right now we primarily do domestic, but we have sold outside of the country, just not enough to send me there. But when I travel, it's a lot of fun. I get to talk about video games and esports. Yes, there is a furniture component, but I'll take any time to talk about video game and esports. It's awesome. So yeah, that's pretty much what my day-to-day looks like.
Well, I got to say, man, speaking of someone who's pushing 40 right now and would have loved to have had an esports industry to work in when I was a young man coming out into the world and trying to make my way in a career, I'm a little bit jealous. Not going to lie, I'm a little bit jealous. You've got a great foot in the industry here, and you're clearly doing great things, and we just appreciate your stopping by to share your perspective and tell us a little bit more about what you've got going on. But Mykiah Bonhom, esports specialist at Spectrum Industries, thanks for popping by the official event podcast here today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Moving right along now with the program, we're joined by Josh Barnickel from Magic 4 Gaming. Magic 4 is a video game tournament lounge and community organization based in Milwaukee, right here. You're actually not far from here. You're up by Oriental Theater, kind of.
Yes, sir. Yeah, we're right off of Farwell, right next door to Landmark Lanes and the Oriental Theater.
That's my old neighborhood, man. I love it up there. It's really cool to hear that that's out there. What's your title with the organization? How long have you been there?
I'm the owner, actually. Co-owner. I own it alongside my wife, Ray. And we started the company in 2021. Our first event was in August of 2021. Kind of after COVID started to settle down, and I realized that our local scene for fighting game events in particular just wasn't quite on the comeback yet, and I was trying to figure out why. Eventually it was just one of those things where it's like, if you want it, you kind of just have to make it yourself. So I just started...
Field of Dreams did.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah. I just started collecting a bunch of equipment and gathering a bunch of stuff, and I found some local partners. Shout outs to Falklandia Brewery down in St. Francis. It was one of the first places that let us come in and set up and hold our first tournament. And it's been kind of a meteoric rise from there to us having our own spot now off of Farwell. And it started really with just the love of fighting games and wanting to have that community interaction back, because everybody that went through COVID knows what it was like. Like, we were all going stir crazy. I just wanted to be a part of people again, and I wanted to press buttons with people, and that's what Magic 4 became.
You talk about that, everybody's got a COVID story, right? Mm-hmm. Because everybody went through it. Mm-hmm. And me, myself, I had young kids in the house, and I was used to getting out and going to work, and all of that was kind of taken away, and what I had left was my old buddies from high school who I've been gaming with since a time when I still had hair on my head. And and like gaming virtually with each other. And it really got me back into games in a way that I hadn't been. So I imagine that this is not just young people that we're talking about. That you've got people from all walks of life, all stripes.
Absolutely. We have, we're starting to get a lot of what we like to affectionately call the old guard come back, and they're the guys that kind of started the scene way back in when arcades were a lot more popular, like Aladdin's Castle in this area and things of that nature. And a lot of them come out and support us. So I'm not the only old guy in the group. We do skew very young. Like, we have a bunch of people that are just getting out of high school, just going into college. A few of our players even got full ride scholarships to different schools for esports. So we have a ton of talent in the scene. One of them is standing there watching me right now. Phenomenal Tekken player, game after my own heart.
Nice.
So, yeah, we have a very wide spectrum of players and people that come in there, and that's one of the things that we like to really focus on with our events in particular is acceptance and community, and it's a safe space for anyone that wants to come in, play games, or just hang out. We do focus mostly on tournaments, but we also have safe spaces that are, we call it the living room. We have a whole sofa set up in there, a bunch of comfy chairs. We have a projector set up in there, and we'll do watch parties for, WrestleMania, and we just did Elimination Chamber this past weekend. But anybody can go in there and just kind of just hang out. You can just vibe. And we provide snacks and food with every entry, so you can just go into the kitchen. It's kind of like going over to your your friend's mom's house back when you were a kid. Just help yourself to anything in the kitchen, dear.
Mrs. Eckert. I got it. Yeah.
And you're just it's supposed to be a place where you can come in and just feel comfortable and be around people that you want to be around. So it's very important to us that we keep that vibe going. But the gaming is what is the glue that kind of holds everybody together and gets people through the door. And then they realize oh no, everybody here is really cool. We can just kind of hang out. Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, I'm curious because FGC is such a legendary and storied community and scene, and there's certainly been no shortage of legendary events and things like it, and communities sprouted up around these events. What was there an event that you went to that kind of inspired what you've done, or what the model you based it off of? What can you tell us about that?
Yeah. So I got to shout out my production assistant right now. He's the one who handles all of our stream stuff. But his events were the first locals that I went to. He ran them out of a arcade in Menominee Falls. Those events were called Run the Set, which we have brought back now and we host at the Hub. But that was the first time I experienced what an offline gaming community was, and I loved it. I could not get enough of just being surrounded by people that cared about something as much as I did and understood it to a similar degree, sometimes more, sometimes less, but everybody was just we could say something and everyone in the room knew what we were talking about. And it's magical when that happens, because you're I found my people.
Yeah, totally.
I felt incredibly vindicated, and it was super cool to play again with people that weren't my tight-knit friend group. And that was the inspiration for starting the whole thing. And then after starting our first event, I started to go out to Frosty Faustings and Combo Breaker and trying to get the full major experience like you're talking about. And those were incredibly eye-opening. Combo Breaker, we are very blessed to be in the Midwest and have so many phenomenal events within driving distance of us. Combo Breaker is a world-class tournament event, and we modeled our local experience to try and emulate that. And also the regional events that we put on, Cream City Convergence, is modeled after Combo Breaker's model. Very similar, trying to capture those same vibes, but with a little bit of a Milwaukee twist on it, as opposed to the Chicago-oriented Combo Breaker route. It's really just kind of it's a celebration and evolution of everything around us, those best elements of those events that we like, and then putting our own little twist on it.
Speaking of having a Milwaukee twist, I hinted at this a little bit, but you're located in a really singular neighborhood in Milwaukee. I've got a poster on my wall at home that says East Side Milwaukee, and it's got an Art Deco version of the Oriental Theater. on it. It's a beautiful piece of architecture. And so this is a neighborhood that has singular architecture, but it's also a cultural center of youth culture in Milwaukee. A lot of young people spend time on North Avenue. You've got the Oriental Theater, you've got Landmark Lanes right up there. What drew you to that for your space? How did that become your space, and where are you situated up there? Because there's a lot of competition to get commercial space up there.
Absolutely. So for that, I have to shout out Brandon. If without my connections with Brandon, I would not be where I am right now, and Magic 4 would not be in the position that it's in. Again, another benefit of events like this is the networking aspect and making connections and letting people know what it is that you're looking for and what you offer so that they can help you push that next step forward. That's what this is all about. And we would not be in that location without him, his connections, and people that we've met at this very show. So again, shout out to them. But it's a great spot for us, especially because a lot of the people that I mentioned come visit us are from kind of college age in that area. So a lot of our regular attendees are UWM students. So we're like right on their front door. It's very easy for them to just kind of walk in, and that's kind of the lifeblood of the day-to-day, week-out events is the UWM crowd. And then we're also close enough to a lot of those other colleges in that area. And when I said we're right next door to Landmark Lanes, we literally share the same front doors. The ones on the left go up, that's us, and the one on the right go down. That's
I'll
them.
be darned. So you're just above Landmark down there.
Correct.
Oh,
yeah.
man.
So we have, and it's another interesting spot for that place too, because of that architecture that you're talking about. A lot of the, the main hallway and the stairwell and all of that hasn't really been touched. So it still kind of has that Art Deco, Oriental vibe to it until you walk into the main doors, and then there's just 12 PS5s and there's a stream set up, and it's just a little bit of a culture shock there once you cross that threshold. But everything else is still very original. Like the bathrooms still have the original tiling, and it's it's a really interesting eclectic mix.
Hopefully it's been cleaned at least a couple of times since it was originally installed.
Yeah, I hope so. Yeah, we've done it at least a couple times. I can tell you that. But yeah, it's a really cool spot, and it's got a great walkability, tons of food options right nearby, which is also a huge plus for us because we don't make food on premises. We like to support every other business around us. Like the Korean fried chicken and boba place next door gets a lot of visits.
Let's shout out Ian's Pizza too.
Ian's Pizza, absolutely.
Shout out Ian's.
It's usually those two that I end up cleaning up in the garbage. Is just Ian's or the boba spot. So.
That's awesome. Well, I think I want to drill down on something you mentioned earlier, which is something on your site that we welcome people of all skill levels. Because sometimes FGC can seem a little bit impenetrable from the outside.
Absolutely.
It's like the people that have been doing it their whole lives at a very high level, and they are very involved in the community. And it's how do you get in there? So how do you, you mentioned the living room, but how do you foster a welcoming community of you can come in at any skill level and we'll keep you here?
Yeah, there's always a personal hurdle for that. Mm-hmm. The first time I went to my local, I got my teeth kicked in.
It's a humbling experience.
100%. And you have to have some level of understanding that when you're going in there, there's going to be somebody that is going to light you up. It's going to happen. But we also offer, instead of entering brackets, it's not a requirement in order for you to hang out with us. We do a $5 spectator fee, and we have enough setups throughout the space where you can just come in, play friendlies, play casuals with people, and just kind of get yourself more ingrained in it. And a lot of our community, because we try and foster that accepting level, is all of them are open to helping you learn. That's what they're there for. They want more people to play against. Right. So they're this is the option I'm doing. This is what beats it. And they'll sit there and they'll train with you, they'll lab with you, they'll give you as many sets as you want. I'll do it too when I have free time. That's what it's all about, is trying to get everybody that comes through the door better, if that's what they want. If they want to just come vibe and hit buttons, hey, that's what we're here for too. But if you want to train and you want to improve and you want to get better, you want to try and get on that pro level trajectory, we have players that are, in the top 50 of their respective games worldwide. We have top level talent in Wisconsin that comes to our locals, and that's the best way to do it. You play against someone who is better than you. Like steel or iron sharpens iron, right? You know, that's you play against somebody that's better than you, and that's how you improve, because that's the best way to learn.
It sounds like, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but it's almost like you're running an FGC Dojo in a lot of ways.
100%. 100%.
Where people can come. But at a dojo, when their members go off into the world and do great things, get scholarships, win championships, they'll hang a banner on the ceiling. You hanging banners yet?
So one thing that we do, anybody that wins a tournament for any of the tournaments that we run, we have the Magic 4 belt, the championship belt.
Awesome.
So anybody that wins a tournament gets their picture with the belt, and then we do shout outs for that. And we do have a wall of pictures of past champions and past events that we've run. My wife calls them the family photos. So no banners yet, but I did have an idea to get a chain. And then engrave the names of the winners on the chain, and then to hang the chain up.
That's
so it's the
awesome.
chain of champions. But I need to get an engraver first, and there's a lot of other steps involved. But we'll get there eventually. But yeah, the belt is one thing that I implemented that was kind of like a goal for people to achieve. Like, you know, like you win this, you get to hold that belt, and it's worked for quite a few players where there's like, I'm getting that belt next time. I want my picture with the belt.
That's awesome.
So it's really cool to see. It fosters a lot of competition, but healthy competition.
What are your plans for the future? What's the mission? Is there any plans on scaling it at all?
Yes, global FGC domination. No, no. I would love to. Like, I know there's pockets in the city that we haven't found yet, and there's people in the area that would still benefit from something like us and just haven't heard about us yet. Like, we get a lot of people that'll accidentally come upstairs thinking that it's Landmark, and then they'll go like, "Wait a minute, but what is this? Hold on!" And then we'll have our conversation with them, and they're like, "All right, sweet, I'm gonna be back. Like, this is cool. Like, I like this." So like, I know that there is a pocket of people that is looking for something like this, and they just haven't found us yet. So, I mean, I always want to get more people at the events. I want to expand into larger locations. I want to start doing more frequent regional level or larger kind of pop-up events, just to spread the love of fighting games and show how awesome they are. Because in my opinion, they are my favorite type of video game to play. I mean, you're entirely on yourself. It's all looking at you and the decisions you make, and it's like a way more interactive and flashy chess, you know?
Yeah.
So, and I love that aspect of it. And I'm also like a, kung fu movie, martial arts movie fanatic. So, all that stuff. That's why I play Law in Tekken, because I like to make him make funny, Bruce Lee noises. He's great. He's a vibe to play. So, I want to see more people involved in it, because I know that there's people we haven't reached yet. And I know there's people that would benefit from being a part of our community and having that network. Yeah. So.
Well, as one small business owner to another, I've got to say, man, it's really, really cool to see what you're doing out there. I know that a lot of people have a vision, but to go out and actually execute on the vision and find a way to make it profitable and sustainable and keep on doing it year in and year out, it's a point where a passion stops being just a passion and it can become a grind. And to keep on grinding through that and to make it happen and to create that space for all these other people to be able to come in and have their own little slice of it. And look, as someone who I think you referred to earlier as being old guard, I remember the days of LAN parties in somebody's mom's basement. And if you're able to recapture even half of that vibe, you are doing the world of public service, man. So Josh Barnickel from Magic 4 Gaming, founder and owner of the thing, keep doing what you're doing. And next time I'm in the neighborhood, I'm going to accidentally go up the stairs instead of down, because I got to see what you got going on out there,
You're
man.
more than welcome, brother. Thank you for the opportunity. Appreciate it.
Thanks for joining us,
Thank
man.
you.
Nice work. Lee Hyde, North American Esports Specialist from Lenovo. Thank you for joining us so far. And how have things been over at the Lenovo booth so far?
Well, I've been really excited to see the diversity in the folks that are attending in this event. This is probably the most wide-reaching event I've seen in over the past 2.5 years. So really, really well done. The community clearly is showing up for this event, speaking to both the value they see in it, but also just how much they're getting back out of it. So very proud to be here.
And the vibe, too. People have been coming in. They seem excited. They seem eager to hear what you guys are cooking up at Lenovo. Of course, a brand well known to us in the world of esports and video games. 40 years now, multinational technology company. You've been specializing in designing, manufacturing, and marketing consumer electronics. We're talking about computers, software, servers, anything else that you could need. But when you talk about the esports community, those needs become very, very narrow. What are people looking for in a gaming machine when they come to you?
Yeah, I think the interesting thing about being such a large company is that it can be difficult in all of the mud, if you will, to really drill down to the fine-tuned details. You're right, it is a niche space. So folks are looking for exactly how do I achieve my goals? And for us, it's not about, let me convince you on buying this one Lenovo Legion notebook, for example, but how do we help you reach the goal and the outcome you want, whether that be in a school, whether that be in a pay-for-play LAN center or a mobile pop-up gaming company. We want to make sure that we are helping invest our knowledge and our resources into getting to that for the customer, and that's hopefully what's exciting them.
I notice your title here is Esports Specialist. You're the second Esports Specialist we've had on today. Can you define what that means for us, and what is your day-to-day like?
Honestly, I don't think any of our companies can define our roles very well. The reality is, in the esports industry, we are all jack of all trades because there is way more need than there is resource. And so my day-to-day is really just trying to meet today's demand, whether that be a customer has a last-minute rush need for some hardware, or we have this event coming up and we had a partner back out and we really need some help getting some loaner laptops, or we don't know how to pull off the stream because we thought we did and testing didn't work out. That kind of random pull, but then the day-to-day, what I plan for is building resources and partnerships and just trying to help lift up the community, especially as we've seen the professional end of esports kind of shrink. We want to build up the beginning of esports to be stronger.
Yeah, certainly. Sounds like we're on a 5-minute clock here, so we've got a few things to run through.
Sure.
But what is the bigger logistical challenge, would you say? I've got a buddy who works in esports in South Korea, and he talks about these massive events that they put on where they're lugging in just cases and cases of hardware, getting them set up, getting the networks running together smoothly. What goes into that?
Well, the good thing is that I love those types of challenges, and it's actually the background and how I started in the space. Having designed an esports lab and an arena at a university, we very quickly realized that at certain times we need to drastically expand that offering for events. We learned the hard way of what to do, and all of that fun challenge is part of the game. And I've been pulled in very often to share that experience and also just lend a helping hand to our customers. I think very often you say lugging equipment around. That's exactly what we've done. And we've tried it in a lot of different ways. There's actually several folks in the room that have helped. We used to have a rental service for a bit, a lot of Pelican cases full of very heavy equipment, including some of the stuff we have on our table. Lugging that, unpacking it for schools, setting it up. So I think one of the biggest logistical challenges is the disbursement of available resources needs to be broader around the U.S., and then the communication of how do you do that successfully needs to be more widely shared and documented.
Mm-hmm. What about individual gamers? I would imagine that you wind up serving them as well. How have their needs and expectations shifted and evolved over the years as games have gotten more complex?
Well, I think it's a lot like everything else in the digital age. We provide a lot of direct access to our product and design teams because we want to hear that feedback and we want to adjust very rapidly. And just like any other industry, as consumers are more able to get their voice heard through X or Threads or whatever other platform, we want to make sure as a company that we're listening to that. So in terms of the consumer needs or the individual needs, it's to be heard and it's to be understood. So at Lenovo, we have a gaming community team. Ben Green is our director of that. Fantastic resource. Highly recommend checking out our Twitch channel. Streams every week. And then Ben Myers is our head of mobile PC gaming. So like our Lenovo Legion Go handheld device, he's the product developer and designer. And every day he's on Reddit listening to our customers and answering their wants and desires.
For the longest time, one of the biggest things powering the growth of companies like, maybe you've heard of it, NVIDIA, was the gaming industry. And then all of a sudden, just over the past couple of years here, there's been this big rush in from the artificial intelligence space and the crypto space and all of that, all going after the same equipment that you need to build gaming platforms for people. Has the availability of that hardware changed the difficulties that you encounter in meeting customer needs?
Well, I think there has been a wild ride, so to speak, especially with NVIDIA specifically. And I agree with the advent of AI technology and capabilities. We both saw a constriction. We saw a constriction of the availability of NVIDIA cards for a short period of time at the advent of the pandemic. Certainly, Mr. Beast, for example, has his riches to thank for a lot of that. And I think that's a great example of what started. The U.S. government has helped actually quite a bit as they've put restrictions on the market, bringing that resource back to us. I do think it would be, it is great that NVIDIA still remembers exactly where their start came from, and that is that experience for our players, and they are continuing to invest in that. And I would say this transition has been a little bit smoother than the past.
Well, good. Glad to hear it. Lee, anything else you want to add before we wind down here and the next piece of programming gets underway on the big stage?
No, I would just like to repeat, I'm so glad you guys are doing what you're doing today as well, spreading the overall message and ecosystem, and I'm just very proud to be here. Thank you.
Well, we appreciate your stopping by. Lee Hyde, the North American Esports Specialist for Lenovo. Thanks for joining us here on the Official Event Podcast.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Well, here we are. We're out on the floor of UWM Panther Arena, and we are headed into the third period, Matt. This is segment 3 of a 3-segment day. We have gotten
home stretch.
Home stretch, baby. Let's go. I had some of that Red Bull, so I'm feeling that now. Yeah. We actually stopped over at Mueller Esports Medicine and tried the Revive system that does the leg massage and purges the toxins or whatever the heck's going on there. I don't know, but I'm feeling it.
Yeah.
I'm ready for segment 3 here.
Yeah, me too. I'm amped.
Should mention, by the way, that this is the official Wisconsin Esports Summit podcast. It is sponsored by Red Bull, and we are joined now by Steve Barron, the founder of GameTogether Milwaukee. Steve, take us through the history of the organization. How'd you get here? How long you been around? What do you do for our community?
Well, if we're going to go all the way back.
Way back.
We'll start. The store's been open. It was November of 2023, but it was about 6 years prior to that. It was a lot of planning. I'm not a wealthy individual, so I was a very slow start. I've always been a very passionate video game collector. I love games. I grew up in the NES, Super Nintendo era. In our area, we don't have a lot of game stores, so Why
is that, do you think?
I've
lived in Milwaukee for more than 13, 14 years now, and it's always been a head scratcher to me.
Yeah, we don't have a ton. We have, everybody has their GameStops, but, that's super corporate, and it's mostly modern games. So I wanted a place where I could go shop for retro games, and we could build a community. So I was like, I had this idea, and I ran it past my wife, and she's like, oh, that sounds great. So I started for years and years. I would go garage sailing. I would go to Goodwill's, back when you could sort of find games at Goodwill's. And I would buy everything I could at a reasonable price, and I would just stockpile it. So it was like 6 years of that. So the collection started getting pretty big. So I started shopping around for, storefronts. And I found a place, and my wife's, then she gets a little nervous. She's like, I don't know.
Oh, wait a minute. This is real?
This is becoming real. And, I would imagine in most of this time, she's not really paying attention to how big that collection was getting. Because, I'd go out 3-4 times a week just looking for games. And, a lot of times I wouldn't find anything, but sometimes I would get a big haul. So I was like, I really have a large amount of stuff here. So I'm like, I do think we'll have a good grand opening and whatnot. But the big kicker was, okay, what if I sell everything and then I don't get any trade-ins? because
you're just back to square one, right?
Yeah, that's 6 years of work.
Then it's not sustainable.
Yeah, we make some money, and then it's over, and then I have a lease for 3 years, and then goodbye. So it took a leap of faith. So we signed the lease, and we got in. We had a really nice grand opening. We sold a good amount of games, got one trade in, and I'm like, oh no, oh no. So, I was persistent, and the trade-ins came. And I think the biggest thing is to get that steady business is you have to pay really well. And that's hard when you're brand new. So, a year in, we have so much inventory. We can't even process it fast enough.
Wow.
So, but that was our humble beginning. So, it's been a year later, and yeah, we've come a very long way.
Yeah. And you also have the completely free video game lounge?
Yes.
That's what I understand. What's that all about?
So when I kind of proposed this business plan to people I know, friends, family, a lot of them are like, what are you doing? What do you mean free? Nothing's free. We're paying rent here. You have to work. You have to pay yourself. And I'm like, trust me on this one. So a portion of the store, we have probably like 12 modern consoles, like PS5s and Xbox Series X's, and we have like a Switch and then something else in the front, and that's all free to play. And that's a lot of expensive real estate for a store where I could be putting expensive merchandise. So I was very firm on doing this because I wanted to build community. I wanted to, I want people to come into my store. I want people to shop. I want to give them a reason to stop in. And at first, it was kind of slow. People would come in. We also have arcade games.
Nice.
They'd be like, how many quarters is it? I'm like, it's free. Or like, how much does it cost an hour to sit down and play the PlayStation 5? I'm like, it's free. So,
and they're like, yeah, what's the catch?
No, I'm like, here's a controller. Go have fun. So it took a while to build. Now, if you come in on like a Friday, we got 25 people hanging out, and they're none of them knew each other. Now they're all friends. They hang out. They go to dinner together, and it has paid off because when they want to buy games, where do you think they go?
I mean, that's just it. At the end of the day, you've made yourself not just a resource for them, but a hub in the community. And when people have something like that in their community, they're not taking it for granted.
Right.
And they're looking for ways to support it because they want to keep it vital. They want to keep it a part of the community.
Yep.
Have you seen an influx in interest from them then going out and saying, oh, I got a few buddies. Oh, you got to check this place out. Or you're looking to buy XYZ, go talk to Steve. He's got a really good line on that kind of stuff.
Oh, absolutely. My regular base, they will tell their friends, their family. If they ever want to sell games, they're coming here. They're coming to GameTogether because they know we pay well and they want to support this because at the end of the day, if it doesn't get support, it's gonna, it'll go away. So it's something myself and a lot of other people wanted, but I think even a lot of people wanted it, but didn't even necessarily know they wanted it. We have a lot of 16 to 21 that come and hang out in the store, and they didn't grow up in the era of the arcade. Because me, when I'm in my early 20s, we would go to Aladdin's Castle, and we would spend all day there.
That's the third time today Aladdin's Castle has come up here. Yes, because people from the Milwaukee area have very strong memories of Aladdin's Castle.
Yeah. It's an amazing place. Mm-hmm. And not that I match the vibe of Aladdin's Castle. I hope to someday to grow into a bigger establishment, but we still have the spirit of it. We're trying to carry that. I want people to come in and hang out. Do you have to buy a $300 game every time you come in? No, you don't have to buy anything. Sometimes people come in and they buy a soda and they hang out and they play games, but next week they may buy a $300 game. So I really want to keep that alive. I don't want that to go away because there's a whole generation of people that have never experienced that. And that now they come to my store and they're like, oh, playing games online it's great, but I would rather be in right next to you and play this game rather than doing it online. Like,
Well, and I'll say this too, as someone who accidentally somehow became a middle-aged property tax-paying adult, but was 16 years old once and grew up in a community that did not have that kind of a hub. If you don't give kids a place to go, they're going to become a problem for you.
Right.
Spoken as a former problem for the man. And so in that way, you're doing a public service as well. You're giving kids a place that they can go to be kids and be with other kids.
Yeah.
And that's important.
It's super important. I have a 16-year-old son, and he would be like, I want to go somewhere with my friends. And I'd be like, well, what do? I don't know. Go to the mall? What do they kick them out after, 4 o'clock because they're too young, or like they need somewhere to go and they need something to do. And a lot of people like video games. So if my gaming lounge were like $20 an hour, like a lot of kids can't afford that. I'm not going to give my kid $20 an hour to sit there for 8 hours in a gaming lounge, but I don't know. I think it's really important. People need a place to go to hang out, to be themselves without being monetized to death. You know what I mean?
100%.
Only too well.
Yeah. And I mean, like you touched on there, people now, I grew up in the age of online gaming. Mm-hmm. Arcades were out, and I grew up in a place that didn't have its own like dedicated small video game store. So it is really like a revelatory experience to game in the same room as somebody else. It's more, you feel more connected than you did online. And like online gaming is great because you can connect from all over the world. And
Right.
I met people from like Australia and stuff that I wouldn't have met otherwise. But you're right, there is something special about that in-person experience. And you guys also hold events at your place too. What are those like, and how can people get involved?
So right now, we don't have any events at the stores on our schedule because we're getting ready for the Midwest Gaming Classic. But
Big thing coming up.
it's going to be
Big.
insane.
It's also the third time that's come up for me
Yeah.
today, too.
I bet.
People
Yeah.
are excited.
I'm very excited and nervous because we're going all in on it. But typically, we were doing once a month. We were doing a Tekken 8 tournament.
Okay.
And I love Tekken. It's just kind of like my thing. I'm not great at it, but I'm just passionate about it.
Sure.
And touching base on what you were saying about online gaming, so if I play Tekken online and I get my butt kicked, like I get a little mad. But if me and you are playing and you kick my butt, I'm not mad. I'm like, dude, you know,
Right.
It's just like a different vibe. I could be like, you kicked my butt. You know what? Let's have some pizza together.
Totally.
Like, you can't do that online. I just like, I hate this game, and turn it off. And,
Yeah.
Like, it's just a completely different experience. But events, we like to do a monthly LAN party. If you don't know what a LAN party is, it stands for Local Area Network. Typically, we run Halo. A lot of times, we will bring
Like
out
classic Halo?
Yes, we have. We have
I am
had.
flashing back to Doritos and
Yes.
Mountain Dew
Yeah.
and sweaty, stinky teenagers sitting all around me.
Red
Yes.
versus
And the
blue in
time
an
of
old
our
box
life.
canyon. Yep.
It is so much fun. It's an experience like no other. We'll pull out 16 original Xboxes, and we'll pull out Halo 2, and we'll just set up the store. Like, we usually start after 7. Stores closed, the doors are open. We typically order pizza for everybody, and we just go nuts. And sometimes we're there till like 1 a.m. And it's just like, thank you for shopping at my store. Thank you for playing video games with me. Let's just have a good night. And it doesn't cost anything, and we love it. And
That's awesome.
Halo came out a long time ago.
2001, I believe. Yeah,
I think you're right
it
about
wasn't that long ago.
But you're still...
Just a year before I was born. After.
You had to put
year
it
after.
like... Oh, okay. Yeah,
Year after.
Sure. Really helpful.
Yeah.
One thing that has impressed me about you until that smartass remark just a moment ago is the respect and even reverence that you have for some of the OG games that are out there, like Halo Combat Evolved. Do you see that in a lot of the other young people that come through your store, this fact that there are games that were around before they were even born, and they have an interest in playing them, experiencing them, learning about them?
Absolutely. I mean, we get a lot of 20 to 25-year-olds that are getting really into game collecting, and even like my assistant store manager, his name is Isaiah. He's 25 and he is really into the Dreamcast. And I'm like, wait a minute, Isaiah, you were born the same year the Dreamcast came out. Like, what do you know about this? But, it's a thing. The internet is a huge resource, so everybody watches about this stuff, and they're like, hey, that looks really cool. And, this huge wave of 20-somethings, they're really into, like, I've seen a 20-something who's collecting for the Sega Game Gear and is trying to get every Game Gear game. And I'm like, dude, I had that when I was a kid. And I'm 20 years older than you. But it's amazing, Like, these old games, they still hold up, and they're still amazing. And even, like, a game like Halo, like, my 16-year-old son could pick up the controller, and he kills me because he plays way more games than I do. But, like, it's still, like, a totally playable, totally fun experience.
Yeah. It's like getting the keys to like your dad's cool classic car. You're like, oh, it's the best hand-me-down ever is getting to play Halo 2 with your brothers growing up,
I love that you put it like that because, and now I'm going to climb up on my old man soapbox for a
Get ready.
moment. But there's something tactile about even just picking up the old the blaster from the original NES system and sitting down and playing Duck Hunt.
Yeah, the zapper.
And the way that trigger clicks and in rings, you can feel the spring ringing inside every time you pull the trigger on that thing.
They don't make things like that anymore.
And those things were indestructible.
You know how many they're NES zappers? You know how many of those get traded into the store? You know how many are broken? None of them. They're unless they were like thrown out of an airplane. They still work,
So as the business expands, it sounds like coming out of year one here, you feel like you found your footing, you found your people. That's all you want as a small business owner.
Right.
Is it too soon to start looking to the future? And what are your hopes for what comes in the next 5 years, the next 10 years here?
I'm always thinking about this. It's hard because we're in a store that's under 2,000 square feet. Like, we are packing it in there. We are being very efficient with our space. If one of my neighbors on either side of me, if they don't renew their lease, we're expanding where we are.
Blow the walls out and take the space.
Exactly,
Yeah.
but that may never happen. So at some point, we want to stay where we're at, but we'll probably end up opening another store. We're going to be patient.
TBD.
Yeah, for sure. But it's definitely something we are thinking about. And location. We're really, I think a big part of our success is our location because we're in the busiest intersection in the city of Greenfield. Like the amount of traffic is insane, and we have a good parking lot. So patience with a new location, it has to be perfect. So I'm not gonna say we're gonna open up a new store in 6 months or anything, but we'll see.
Well, for folks that want to learn more, where do they find it? Where do they find you
So
online?
I am everywhere. Social media, if you type in GameTogether MKE on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, anything. We have a YouTube channel. We do weekly restock videos. The previous week's trade-ins, I do a YouTube video, and man, does that draw a crowd. But if you ever want to see what gets traded in the store, find us on YouTube. It's just GameTogether MKE. We got the green logo. You can't miss it.
Well, that's awesome. Well, Steve Barron, founder of GameTogether MKE, thanks so much for stopping by. You better believe I'll be popping in soon to try to get my NES blaster.
Right on. Yeah, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Thanks, man. We appreciate you. That's the second time that's happened. It's all good, man. We appreciate you.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Are you? Where are you guys from? Are you local or?
Yeah. So, Podcamp Media, we're a podcast production company based here in downtown Milwaukee. Our studios are actually just on the other side of the river. If you know where Carl Roch's restaurant used to be, over there. Otherwise, it's the corner of Milwaukee and Mason Streets.
Okay,
right on the
dude.
streetcar line.
Right on, dude. Yeah.
Yeah. Stop by sometime.
Absolutely, man. Yeah. Well, thanks for having me. Thanks for everything.
Appreciate you. Thanks for stopping by, man.
Yeah, dude.
Take care.
Thank you.
Have a good one. Enjoy the rest of the show.
Thanks.
So, Matt, I know that when we rolled in here today, you were still wiping the sleep from your eyes after a late night. In addition to being a video games guy, you are also a movies guy.
Oh, yeah.
And so had a lot of interest in the Oscars last
Yeah.
night and what was going on there. But there's another awards show that has been making some headway in the world, and in fact, I was very surprised to learn is outperforming the Oscars
Yeah.
in every way. Tell me a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so I mean, we're obviously here celebrating the rise of esports, which is one aspect of the gaming industry, but another aspect is the sort of critical interest in it. And the award shows, specifically the Game Awards, hosted by Jeff Keighley. Have you ever heard of it before?
You know, I knew that it was out there. I haven't really tuned it in. Again, put that down to having been like deep in the hole of early parenthood for the
Sure.
past 7 years.
Sure.
That it hasn't been on my radar. But what I've heard, it seems like it's really become a thing.
Yeah. Well, and I've got some numbers here. The Oscars took place yesterday as we're recording this, but so I don't have the numbers in quite yet. But for last year's Oscars, there was 19.5 million views. That sounds pretty impressive, right?
I mean, I would take it on
Yeah.
my podcast.
Sure.
I'd be fine with that.
Whereas the 2024 Game Awards had 154 million views across all platforms.
That is effing bonkers.
It's crazy, right? So that's across YouTube streams, that's across Twitch, and I don't think there's any like cable representation for the Game Awards. There's no traditional TV stream. It's all online. But I think in a way that makes it more accessible than the Oscars.
It makes it more
have been.
accessible, and it means that the audience is more tuned in.
Yeah.
I mean, people will watch the Oscars, and they'll be like, oh, it's on. I'll watch it for
Yeah.
a little while.
Right.
And they're counting those as listeners, whereas people that are watching online are invested in it.
Right.
They're going out of their way to find this and tune into it. So,
Right.
frankly, I'm pretty blown away that it hasn't made more of a splash in general pop culture than it has.
Yeah, well, and especially because like they keep trying. They keep bringing in like the people that are watching it are people that are into gaming, but you know, they keep bringing in like Harrison Ford was there, Keanu Reeves has been there. Like they bring in like these big stars, but I still think watch this big award show. Where is it? Twitch isn't the norm for, people who are used to watching the Oscars, The Oscars just yesterday for the first time streamed on Hulu. And that didn't go too well because the last two awards of the night, Hulu cut out. So because it went over the allotted time and it stopped right when the allotted time was up, and just people just couldn't see the end of the show.
That seems like an oversight on somebody's part.
Yeah, that you wouldn't imagine that the Oscars would go long. But so if you weren't watching the ABC broadcast, you couldn't see the end of the Oscars.
Okay, so what's it going to take then for the Game Awards to get the TV treatment, to be put out there where it's more accessible to the general public? Because gaming is more a part of society than it ever was before.
I don't know if that's the question. I think the question may be, how does the Oscars get in the Game Awards scene? How does the Oscars get on YouTube and Twitch? Because that's where the audience is now for like consuming a lot of content, especially long form content. People aren't sitting down in front of their TV and watching a lot of stuff anymore. But pop it on your phone while you're going out somewhere. You're walking. There's that one best soundtrack. You can take it anywhere. And I think what's interesting about it too is it's not just an award show, because I think maybe half the people, maybe a little bit less than half the people, tune in for the actual awards. Like people care about like Game of the Year, because they have like a voting body, and then there's a small percentage that is factored in from an online fan vote. So it's like you can have some sort of control over the outcome.
You've got some skin in the game.
Yes.
Yeah.
And obviously, gamers are competitive people. They're competitive folk. So
people
they
get
want there to
really,
win.
really excited about their favorite games too, and they want to
Exactly.
see them come across as the winner.
Exactly. So that's definitely a component of it. But what the Game Awards has done that's interesting is it's also kind of the new E3. If you've ever heard of E3, it's kind of a new, it's the industry's big chance to showcase what's coming next as well. So it maybe half the night is awards, and then the other half of the night is announcements, trailers, previews, devs coming up on the stage and saying, this is what we've got in the works, take a look. And so it's like kind of that, and his other event, the Summer Games Fest, is kind of what's separated, what's like become the new E3 for people, where it's like this is where people tune in to see what are going to be the new games coming out soon. So it's like half looking back, half looking forward.
Yeah.
And I do find that really interesting. That you don't see any. That's unheard of for movies. You don't see trailers debut at the Oscars. You know? That's just not a thing. But it's
maybe they should look into that.
Maybe they should to get more people watching.
You sent me some viewership numbers that blew me away. That over the past 10 years, this has gone from something that was like a little more than 1 million people watched it to now that insane figure. It's more than 10x'd.
Yes.
It's more than 100x'd.
Yeah.
Over the over
and
the
it
last
started
10
on TV.
years.
It was a thing that was on TV that he then split off and did his own thing on.
You're really telling me TV
online.
is not the way of the future
Well.
here with this. How much? So it's 100x'd over the last 10 years. How much of a ceiling is there for growth yet? Can this keep growing? And what do they need to do to avoid falling into a plateau? I guess you don't fall into a plateau, but you know what I mean. How do they keep growing it? How much bigger can it get?
Well, I don't know. I think we saw, because last year it was 100, or no, 2023 it was 118 million, and that jumped in 2024 to 154. So I think part of that is due to the pandemic destroyed E3, which was Electronics Entertainment Expo in LA. That was where all the game companies would showcase their new games, their new consoles. That's where things would be revealed. Nintendo, Sony, Microsoft were there. And it was like a weekend that you as a gamer would get really excited for, because it was like, I'm clearing my schedule and I'm watching trailers and I'm seeing like them unveil the new Xbox or whatever. Well, when the pandemic hit, a lot of these companies discovered we can just do pre-recorded online presentations whenever we want, have all the attention to ourselves, and get just as much of a response from people as having this big in-person event, sharing space in a literal sense and in the news cycle with all of these other companies. So they were like, well, we're just going to do small, like, direct style presentations. And so people were hungry for like one main event where they could go to see what's happening, what's coming up. And Jeff Keighley just kind of swooped in out of nowhere and was like, I'm going to do that. I'm going to fill that role. So I think people hungry for that kind of event flock to Summer Games Fest and the Game Awards to, fulfill those dual roles of appreciating what has come out and looking forward to what is coming. But as far as growing it, I really don't think TV is the way because I think it's limiting the audience at this point more than something that you can just pop on your phone for free, not having any streaming service, not having any cable package.
I think you are grossly overestimating the ability of certain generations, not going to name names, but certain generations to try new technology platforms.
Sure. But, I think as it keeps growing and as more people keep talking about it, it's going to become ingrained in people as like, this is one of the big award shows, because everybody's starting to get into like the awards season. You're tracking the Emmys, the Golden Globes, the Oscars.
Don't forget the Podcast Academy Awards.
Don't forget the Podcast Academy Awards.
March 31st in Chicago this year, baby.
They call those the Big Four.
That's what they call them.
So I think as that gets becomes more of a cultural mainstay, and people realize the dual purpose nature of it, and they keep getting these big celebrity appearances, and my parents perked up when they saw Harrison Ford walk out on stage, and they were like, oh, that kind of, for some people, that like validates it, right? Of like, oh, they get big names. They get Keanu Reeves,
Mm-hmm.
They get, they had Jordan Peele come out, and he announced that he's working on a game with Hideo Kojima.
Jordan Peele?
Jordan Peele.
Interesting. Okay.
So you get crazy announcements like that, that only happen there because Jeff's been doing this for so long, that he has like every connection you can possibly imagine. So he gets to pull from all these different companies to put together a show that's kind of not possible with anymore, with all these different companies just being like, we're going to do our own direct. But it's Jeff, so we'll send something to him.
It's certainly cool to see. And again, I like to think that at the end of the day, the more you can get outside of the traditional bounds of what's been considered the video gaming community and out into general mainstream pop culture, the more that this thing stands to grow and the more people that you can touch. But in that vein, coming back to the Oscars for a second here, because I know that you were up late watching them.
Yep.
And I know that it's something that you make time for, but it used to be the case that video game movies were not something that were highly lauded. It wasn't. When you heard that your favorite video game was going to become a movie, you typically approached it with equal parts dread and morbid curiosity.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking particularly back to now I can't even remember the name of it.
Super Mario Brothers?
No, but that was bad. You know what?
Mortal Kombat? There's a million of these things.
It went really bad for a while.
Yeah.
And recently, it hasn't all been bad.
Yeah.
Am I allowed to feel good about the state of video game IP and cinema right now, or is this just a temporary blip?
I think you are, because I think, like we're talking about with the award shows, I think as video games become more just like a normal thing, like Alana Pierce, she was a journalist, now I think she writes for Sony. She made this really interesting comment where she was like, I wouldn't classify myself as a gamer any more than I would myself as a moviegoer. I just don't think that's a necessary classification anymore because it's so proliferated in the culture at this point. So I think as that has become a reality, it used to be the case where Hollywood was like, well, we can't just make it from the video game. We can't just make it like the video game because video games aren't. Movies are the final form of storytelling. We can't just have it be a faithful adaptation of the video game. We have to, change it a bunch. And I think there's been a level of respect gained recently for video game storytelling, and a sort of fine tuning of how you adapt it, because certain games, the removal of the interactivity kind of takes what was special about the story away.
Right.
So it doesn't always work. Whereas some games, I think, lend themselves more to TV, and I think we're seeing that a lot more often with successes in TV video game adaptations. A lot of nouns here, because you see shows like The Witcher and Fallout and The Last of Us getting not only commercial success but critical success. Like critics are like, "Hey, these are good," and I think that whole this is the good one of the video game thing, the video game curse adaptation is kind of over because we've heard it so many times recently. The Mario movie made $1.3 billion worldwide. The new animated one with Chris Pratt as Mario.
I'm not quite ready to lump that in with the good ones yet.
Yeah,
but I haven't seen it. But I will say, let's dissect this a little bit.
Yeah.
Because Fallout is one that I did watch. And
Okay.
Fallout is also a game that I played.
Yeah.
A little bit. And so I want to take from Fallout as a case study here and look at some of the things that made it a successful adaptation.
Mm-hmm.
Because I worry right now that with the high-profile success of Fallout and The Last of Us and these others, that the studio execs are going to start rubbing their hands together and say,
what else?
Get all the IP
Yeah.
and rush it out immediately. Let's do it as quick as possible.
Yeah.
And that's not what I want. I don't want a new glut of video game movies and properties that just completely and totally miss the mark. Fallout, I feel like, really knocked it out of the park because it has such a distinct look and feel that permeated every single one of the games, and they were able to take that and without feeling like they were married to any particular story from any of the games, create a new story within that world that still felt true to the core concept of the world.
Yes. Yeah. I think that's the key is direct adaptations. Often it's like, well, if you're a fan of the video game, it's going to get things wrong, and it's going to feel weird that you're not doing it. And people who don't know it, it might be kind of inaccessible because of the different quirks of the video game story that would be explained by playing it, or better experienced in an interactive sense. But the things that are successful here are the ones that take the thematic elements and the aesthetics and are able to translate that and tell something that feels like it fits, without saying, here's exactly what you've seen before, only you don't do anything this time. And I think those are... I do think, though, that we are going to see more, because your fear may be somewhat founded.
I know my
prediction-
fear is founded.
Yeah, I think
Thanks.
my prediction is these, based on the best-selling video game, is going to be the new based on the best-selling novel. I think we've mined books and comic books, and I think video games are like, we're just cracking into that next big frontier of like, oh, there's a wealth of stories out here, and we can tap into that and make, hopefully, really good movies and TV. But I think there will be ups and downs, as there has been with anything that's, based on a book, based on a comic book. There's going to be ups and downs in there. But I think they're figuring it out more than they ever have. They're in a little bit of a groove now with finding something that feels true to the video game, but also feels new and accessible to people who have no experience with the video game, and maybe even gets people to be like, I should jump back into Fallout because I like this world and I want more of it.
Oh, I jumped back into Fallout.
It worked on you.
As soon as I watched the series, I popped back onto Fallout 4, got it reinstalled, played through it, and they even created some new content for the game as a result of it having been a series.
Oh, okay.
And so there was new stuff waiting for me when I
tie-in.
logged on.
Yeah.
It was so fun to dip back into that world for a hot minute.
Yeah.
And it felt so familiar. It was like seeing an old, slightly irradiated friend who I hadn't seen for a really long time.
Yeah.
Given all of these rules that we've kind of highlighted here, what property do you want to see get the proper cinematic treatment, either as a movie or as a series?
Yeah. I tend to think series for video games is probably a better medium, because video games can be anywhere from like 8 to 100 hours long to tell their stories, and trying to cram all of that into a movie, I just don't think that that often works. But they made a Halo show, but it's not good. It's not very good. That was one of those where
that was very undignified of me.
Sure. Well, the show's very undignified. It very much came from a place of we're not gonna make something that feels like the games at all. We're not gonna consult the games. We're gonna do something completely wildly different. And it essentially just felt like a sci-fi show that had the name Halo slapped on it.
It was almost like the iRobot treatment.
Yes.
The Will Smith movie that came out in the early 2000s that was literally written as a different spec script with a different name. And they said, this is okay, but we think it would sell more if we bought the rights to Asimov's property.
Yeah.
Which is what they very crassly did. And you can ask my buddies. I was yelling about this at the top of my lungs at a bar the other weekend. I was not asked to leave, but I feel very strongly that that movie needs to be stricken from the record. So, Halo, don't do that. You think that they should try again with Halo, but do it right this time?
I think an animated series as well, because something that big and bombastic and sci-fi either demands a budget so unbelievably large that it's going to balloon out of nowhere and become crazy and unsustainable. But an animated show could fit that universe really well, and you could keep the budget under control, but have it something that feels like it's from the world that everybody likes. Because what happened with the Halo show was the opposite of what happened with you with Fallout, where people were like texting me because they know I'm like a big Halo fan, and they were like, "You like this? Are the games like this? Like you play the game of this show?" And I'm like, "It's not, guys. This isn't. We don't claim this one.
I disavow this product.
Yeah,
this is not what we care for. Yeah.
So, but yeah, I mean, I think an animated series. I think Zelda. The fact that we don't have an animated show for Zelda and Link going on different adventures in Hyrule, it doesn't make any sense for me. We have a live-action movie slated to come out soon, or to start production soon. I
don't know why you would make that into a live-action movie.
No.
Because it's not in keeping with the aesthetic and the theme and the archetypes that have been established that people know and love.
I think that's some of the old-headed way of thinking, peeking back through of like, the ultimate goal is people want to see this, what it would look like in real life, which I don't think is everybody's ultimate goal. There's a novelty to it, but that alone can't carry the content or the stuff that you make to be something that really like latches onto people. Just like, they're real now. Okay, what are you gonna do with that?
Hate it. I'm gonna pile on just in the vein of like speaking good things into existence,
Yeah.
because I'd like to see it, because I think that there is a piece of intellectual property that is out there that is wildly undervalued, underappreciated in its time, and has an aesthetic that carried through a series of almost a dozen games, each of which was true to this aesthetic. It has a wonderful bunch of world building that, even though I played probably 5 or 6, maybe even 7 of these games, I still want to know more about the world because it is so thick and so rich, and that is the BattleTech universe. BattleTech has been around for decades and is wildly underappreciated by pop culture at large. It's very, very niche still. People that know it, love it, are crazy about it. The Mech Warrior series of games, especially, is one that it's built to be episodic. It's built to put characters forward. It's this entire subculture of mercenaries going out in giant robots and fighting, but they're not just like mercenaries. They're also they're the knights in shining armor of their time, and there's a
so
code
Titanfall.
of chivalry. No, it's BattleTech, and I want to see it done. It would be such a good series.
Yeah.
And just trying to speak it into existence here.
Yeah. That's all you can hope for.
So there it is. Take it or leave it. We've spoken it into existence here on the floor of the Wisconsin Esports Summit. It has been a good day today. We've gotten to meet and see and talk about some interesting people and things today. What are your final takeaways, Matt?
I'm just, as someone who's not from here, I come from California. I've been here for about 3-4 years. I'm just floored by the sense of community and how people are so eager to foster that community. I think coming from where I come from, it's pretty easy to get lost in the noise. Whereas the scene is, I don't know if developing is the right word, because some of these places have been around for 20 years, as we've learned, but it's much more focused and much more driven to be intentional about the community. And so everyone's so welcoming, everyone's so inviting, and just eager to share and get you involved. And like, you talk to these people, and after one conversation, you're like, oh, I've known this guy for years. Like, I could. So yeah, just floored by the sense of community, impressed by all the vendors here showing off their cool stuff. We got to try out the Mueller Esports Revive system, and still reeling from that.
That was dynamite.
Yeah.
But I just want to reiterate to what a great asset this event is to the community here. How lucky we are to have it, but also how cool it was this year, and every year, but especially this year, I feel like we got an extra grasp on it. The degree to which more and more people are investing their own personal time and wealth and treasure into professionalizing this space. And some of the small business owners that we got to talk to today, who have decided that this is how they are going to make a living for themselves.
Yeah.
This is how they're going to provide for their families, and are finding a community that is willing and eager to support them. It's cool because it's not something that we had nearly as much even 10 years ago. But it goes to show you that the community is there, the community's hungry for it.
Yeah.
And so we are just, it's still, it feels like it's entering a next phase in some way here.
Yeah.
And just really exciting to be on the cutting edge of it.
Totally.
So that much said, the next episode of Battery Low podcast, you were telling me, coming out soon, is going to be an Oscars recap.
Yeah, I need an outlet to talk about all the opinions I have on movies. So we are taking a break from video games for just 1 week to talk about the Oscars. I'm bringing on a friend of mine who has her own movie podcast. That'll be Heather Davenport. She's one take of 2 takes on film. Yeah, we're going to be talking about the Oscars. We're going to talk about our favorite movies that were not nominated because there were a lot of snubs. And yeah, just going over what we watched. I think combined we have about 200 so movies watched from all of last year. So we're going to be covering the gamut.
That's a stunning pace of media consumption. My hat is off to you, sir. Make sure to tune into that wherever you find podcasts. Similarly, we've got a new episode of Lead Balloon coming out next month. I am looking to do an episode categorizing and charting the descent into madness that is the current state of streaming. Lead Balloon, of course, is a show about advertising, marketing, and public relations. Marketing and advertising in streaming services has taken a prodigious leap up over the last year. And I want to explore why that is, why it's happening, what it means, and who in their right mind is paying for these advertising spots that people don't want thrust into programming where it wasn't 12 months ago.
Yeah.
So that's what we're going to dig in on there, rather. But he is Matt Covarrubias. I am Dusty Weis from PodCamp Media. We are an award-winning podcast production company based here in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, working with clients all across North America. And it has been an absolute delight for us to host the official Wisconsin Esports Summit podcast here, brought to you by our friends at Red Bull. But until next year, folks, thanks for tuning in, and we will see you soon.